is going to be the drugstore version of makeup I would do on myself as a bridal makeup artist if I was getting married today. First, I'm going to prep my skin with this e.l.f. Super Hydrate Gel Moisturizer. Then I'm going to go in and wipe all the product off my brows to make sure that my brows really stay. I'm going to go in with the Ardell Brow Glue and push these brows exactly how I want them. I'm not going to use too much pressure because I personally don't like the laminated brow look on myself, and I'm able to manipulate my brow hairs into the shape that I want. So when I go in here in a second with this brow pin, I won't have to use as much product. And a Q-tip in my cellar water around the brows is going to make sure that any of that gel that got on the skin is not going to come off on the foundation or concealer and start to look splotchy and weird. If you use a gel like this or freeze your brows in any way, you cannot skip this step. Before I go in with that brow pin, I really need that gel to dry down and set. So I'm going to go in with concealer on my... There's a fuzzy in here. I'm going to go in with concealer on my eyelids, and for this, I'm going to be using the Pacifica Dreamlit Concealer. And this concealer to get that nice shape underneath. We still have to fill them in, but again, I want that brow gel to set, otherwise my brow pin isn't going to work like I want it to. It's going to mix with the gel and not give me the product that I'm looking for. I'm going to go over all this concealer with my sponge. Now I can go in with my brow pin, and I'm going to start to fill in those sparse areas of my brow. This is the NYX Snatch and Lift Brow Pin in the shade Espresso. And that's going to give me a more defined, perfected brow that I'm going for. Best tips when it comes to brows is to look at it from every angle and see if there are any sparse areas. And once I have my brows defined, I'm actually not going to go in with any powder to set my eyelids because I really want this to show up. I'm going to make sure there's no creases with my sponge. Then I'm going to go in with the Maybelline Infallible Bronzer. I always like to go in with the bronzer on my crease and eye for a cohesive look that I'm going to use on my face because it just really makes everything blend and mesh together at the end. So I'm going to just build this up in the crease, and it's going to be kind of the same eye look we did in the last video. And also, if you want to see some bridal glam on a bride, make sure to follow because I will be posting that this week, and I also have 6 other bridesmaids to post. So if you feel like you look a little bit different than me, trust me, I had a party of 7 and I even had 2 moms of the bride. So use some ColourPop eyeshadows. I'm gonna go in with the shade Camp, which is just a warm chocolate brown. Use whatever eyeshadows you have on hand, and I'm gonna put this just on the outer 2/3 of my lash line, kind of in an skewed formation. So you notice like I'm almost doing a wing, but not quite. And this is a tiny fluffy brush, so it's not going to be as like stark or dark because it's going to deposit the color much fluffier, if that makes sense. So I'm getting more of a lighter, fluffier, blended, blown out kind of a finish. I'm going to take a tiny flathead brush and go in with a more cool brown color and a little bit darker, and this is a stiffer brush, so I'm going to get more color payoff, and I'm going to put this directly where I want it because it's going to show up much more opaque. Considering the brush is stiffer, it's going to pack on that product much darker and less blown out and diffused. And I'm going to go in this really tiny little thin brush and use a black shadow. You could use black eyeliner as well if you wanted, but this is just my comfort zone and cup of tea because I really am just tight lining the eyes, which means I'm just getting the eyeshadow in between the lashes, hardly even lining the lash line, but it adds some definition that I'm looking for. Can you see the difference? I'm gonna go back into that dark chocolate brown shade that we kind of fluffed out right here. That's almost the wrong shade, and I'm gonna kind of connect it a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of add it to this outer corner, and in circular motions bring that up into the crease, just so that I've got a little bit more definition here on this outer corner. And I'm taking a big fluffy brush with like a creamsicle kind of color, and I'm blending it out. I already blended out this eye so you can see the difference here, but you're just gonna go over all of those little rough edges with light pressure and kind of blend it out into the shape that you want. And this is the concealer brush, and I'm gonna clean up underneath here, but the thing is I'm leaving a little bit of space for the under eye because when we get to the under eye, we're gonna connect it. We don't want it to be like disconnected in a strange way. So I don't use primers. It is all about prep for me, but the foundation that I'm going to be using today is the L'Oreal Pro Glow. This gives you a beautiful glowy base, enough coverage, but it's still pretty natural, and it lasts forever as long as you apply it by really stamping and pushing it into the skin, which I'm going to demonstrate here for you guys. I'm using this Palladio Kabuki brush, which is also a drugstore brand. And I'm just going to push this into the skin. And I'm not matching my face, I'm matching my neck, okay? Because of the amount of SPF and exfoliation I do on my face, my spray tan really only lasts on my face for about a day. Once I push this all into the skin with my brush, I'm going to go over it with my sponge and make sure I've covered just every square inch of my face and push this foundation in everywhere. And what that is going to do is make sure there's no additional product on my face and any crevices, fine lines, wrinkles, or anything like that. For concealer, I would be using the LA Girl Pro Conceal mixed with some of the Pacifica that I put on my lid if it wasn't for the Tier foundation. The minis, okay? The minis are only $15, which is about the price of drugstore concealers these days. And if it were me, I wouldn't be using a drugstore concealer. I'd be using Tarte Shape Tape. But because of the sake of this video, I think that it makes a difference to include this and show you guys like my little hack. This is a compact foundation. This is the mini. This is 15W. And I'm going to add this underneath my eye because it's full coverage. It sets really, really, really nicely. And this is just going to be a great brightening concealer for underneath my eye. Now, it's going to look crazy at first. It's going to be okay. You can even use a more detailed brush to apply this if you want, but you'll see a common theme of everything I apply with the brush. I go back over with my sponge because it's going to give me that really, really flawless, seamless finish. And I'm telling you, at first you're going to be like, girl, you look crazy, that's way too bright. There is left over on that sponge to brighten up that chin and the center of my forehead because you really don't need that much product. I might add a little bit more to the center of my forehead here. And we're going to get into my favorite, which is the Milani contour. So go ahead and go to part 2. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to make this as in-depth as possible for you guys. I'll see you over there in part 2.